Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So, in today's episode, I'm going to look at masculinity and its role within leadership of spiritual and occult groups and things that I feel that we should be doing within that space. This topic is something that has kind of been with me since I did the live with Bobby at Wild Raven Tarot and Curtis at Creek County Oracle. If I got the channel name wrong, Curtis, I'm sorry. And Pumbaa Dan. The role of a priest in modern pagan practice is something that I've kind of wrestled with and looked at and tried to figure out for myself for many a year now. My path, I've always been one that likes to share information, share wisdom, share stories and experiences. And we never really hear about this role within our books that are very female empowerment centric, goddess centric, and those are needed. No question about it. But men also need to step up and examine what our role is in the spiritual eco structure. As we move through from the wide-eyed and curious seeker, the naive fool starting on that journey, we take steps to initiate, adept, to full practitioner. And this is a lifelong journey. And in certain topics, in certain interests, you'll repeat the process many a time. My interests, I've gone from being a seeker, and when it comes to druidry, to being a bit more adept after I got a few more rituals under my belt, experienced different Sabbats and rituals on their high days within the framework. I didn't quite become a full-fledged practitioner, full-skilled, before moving on to something else, and that's okay. But a lot of this has been done on my own, and maybe it would have helped me if I'd found a good leadership person to kind of lean on and help facilitate the journey. Finding spiritual groups, covens, groves, whatever you want to call your particular gathering of like-minded practitioners, isn't always possible for the individual. But if it is, if there's going to be leadership in any way, there's certain things that they should be doing for you. I would love to find a group with a male and female leader that had a balanced and equal dynamic. That is like looking for a golden unicorn amongst 1,000 unicorns within 1 billion horses. It's really hard to do. But as we kind of walk along our path, we have the opportunity to cross paths with group leaders, and there should be a process before you really get ingrained into the fabric of the group, and it should take some time. Anybody that is going to bring you into a group immediately as like full-on membership, it's a red flag to me. Like, if I ran a group before I even began, I would sit and I would interview you, learn who you are, learn your likes and dislikes, get to know a little bit about your circumstances and what's your interest in the tradition I would be looking to operate within. Because if you are coming into a Norse pagan group, we'll just say that's what I'm running, a Norse pagan group, and you're looking to practice Enochian magic, we're not going to fit. If I want certain things within that group, and some of them are red flags or triggers, you may be an awesome person, but I don't know that I would want to force you to be around those things. I mean, if you are a strict vegan, and as part of one of my rituals, I wanted to do like a pig roast and a potluck for the community, and the idea of being around cooking meat over a fire just turns your stomach. I don't want to put you in that situation where you just get the deep ick. The interviewing process needs to go both ways for it to be healthy. The seeker needs to come in with questions they have for leadership. You need to examine the hierarchical structure of the group, because regardless of whether they say there's a hierarchy or not, there's going to be. It is human nature. And sometimes the ones pulling the actual strings are not the ones that are actually the leaders. There may be people that run in their orbit that speak in the high priestess or high priest ear, whispering and controlling things from the shadows. Anything done within a group should be something that the group has agreed to do. In this instance, I feel like it would be best to get into a newly forming tradition. That way you can help kind of shape it, guide it, even as just a regular member. The person that founds or the founding group of a tradition is always going to have a bit more power and a bit more say whether they really push that or not. You're going to have a certain amount of trust with the people that you came in with. Maybe a person or two that came in before you. In this instance, the priest should be getting to know you, and you should be getting to know the priest. Just getting to know, like, okay, his name's actually this. He does this, this, and this. He's knowledgeable in this area. He doesn't have these certain ideals or thoughts that are red flags to me. He has a good name and a good reputation in the greater community. I don't lead a circle, a coven, or any other magical spiritual group, but I am involved in the community. And hopefully I have a good name amongst the community. So say we lived in a town together, and I'm like, you know what? I want to start something. A seeker from outside of our niche community coming into our town, like, oh, hey, I heard somebody's starting a Norse pagan group. What can you tell me about them? What do you know of this person? Being able to gather knowledge and ask questions to get that knowledge is a positive. Red flags in this instance are where the knowledge and information on people is super tightly controlled. Everybody has things they don't want people to know. But within a group setting where there's going to be balances of power and a slight imbalance due to hierarchy, you have to be able to trust your leadership, just like the leadership has to be able to trust the initiate. There has to be a growing respect and trust from the start. There has to be a commitment to each other, with the leadership saying that they're going to do this thing, and this thing for the initiate as they come into the group. And there has to be a commitment from the initiate to the group to do thing 1, thing 2, and thing 3. The masculine leadership is gonna be the one that, well, both leaders in a group, honestly, are gonna ask the questions, provide wisdom and knowledge, work as something of a guide. There are certain roles that the masculine figure would lead into: the warrior, the guardian, the protector, the wise old teacher. I want to say flame keeper, but several traditions and myths and stories I've heard of, it's kind of a mutual, like anybody can do that role, whatever expression they have. You come into a group and you go from initiate to an adept. There may be testing as you move from one tier to another within a circle, within a group. This is a dangerous time because unscrupulous leadership may be expecting certain things, certain favors, or they may have you start distancing yourself from family or friends that do not believe the same things that you do. They may distance you from your friends that may be on a Christian path. That is not right to do within a pagan, witchy, or occult circle, or any spiritual circle. Seeking to distance you from your grounding environment, your family and friends, is a massive, massive red flag. Get out. As you move into groups, make sure that you have your voice through every step of the way. You're going to evolve as a person as you go through your spiritual journey from initiate to adept. As you move from initiate to adept, you're going to be expected to learn more, to be able to participate more fully in the group's day-to-day or event-to-event workings. Maybe a bit more involvement in the group's life day-to-day. Maybe you have a Discord server and information is shared, events are planned, and just fellowship. Fellowship is a very important part in any magical group, any group of people, honestly. It's how you gain trust and rapport with one another. Moving from adept to full initiate, full member. Moving into that role of priest. There's going to be testing as you move from the adept into priest roles. And that will come with more responsibility still. You may be expected to lead and facilitate certain rituals. You may be expected to present classes and lead study groups. You may be expected to liaise or work with leadership and other groups of similar minded folk. Nah, not folk. Similarly minded people. The word folk in a Norse paganism structure? No, icky. But any similarly minded groups. It may be on you to come back to your high priest, high priestess, and say, hey, I've heard that John Schmo is a very good guy. He runs a good group. This is what they believe. Asking around in their community, he seems to have a good name. And then you've got Barry Schmo in the next town over, and he's got a name that everybody's just like, nah, no. That's a sign not to work with him. But to determine that Barry Schmo is not a good person, you do have to look, observe. A lot of groups will have obvious signs that'll kind of clue you into how they operate, what they believe, what they are. It's staying vigilant, both as a seeker looking to come into a tradition or a group, and as somebody liaising with others. I know I would not go into a group that I've heard people have been told to distance from their friends and family before, because that's never good. It's manipulative. It's controlling. There are also going to be groups out there that may really enjoy what you're doing, what they see from you, and they may try to build you up to be like this prodigy. You may be highly skilled, but showing favor like that is a form of manipulation, and it is going to trigger resentment in some members of the group and the community, whether you see it or not, and it's going to create an energetic imbalance. Group leadership, you've got to interact with everybody. You've got to help everybody grow. In situations where too much love and hyping of somebody is thrown out there, it's an imbalance, because that's attention other members of the circle, of the hall or tradition are not getting. The role of the masculine leader is to be that solid figure, to be present, to know when it's time to lead, and know when it is time to step back and let others lead. Know when the power is to be taken, and know when it's to be shared. Everything has its time and its space and a practice. Just like the Oak King and the Holly King in their battle. One leads into the next in a cycle continuous. But the old leader, the old high priest, needs to also know when it's time to step down. Because hoarding power, nah, that's terrible as well, and it's stifling to the community in which they run. It's stifling in the community they belong and need to be nurturing, to be leading. You create a group to share information, develop a tradition, and to let others rise within it, to gain experience and recognition amongst their peers, to get that elevation to priest, priestess, high high priestess. The masculine leader may be the one to lead in song, to lead in story, to embody the Oak King and the Holly King in the different times of the yearly cycle, the rise and the fall. Their presence and the way they express it may change with the seasons. Any group you join needs to have a clearly set out code of operation, a code of bylaws that are strictly adhered to. Those bylaws have a reporting process, a documentation process behind them to show how and why. And there needs to be a process to air grievances, to maybe trigger investigations. There needs to be something set out in any group that if there is an issue of malicious manipulation, that's what all is to me, but I digress here. Anything of cult adjacent or cult like activity, that you go to the police with all the information you can, because there are toxic and terrible situations, abusive situations. Financial abuse is a very real thing in this world, and in spiritual groups you have it. You gotta buy all these things from my shop that I run, to move into this circle, to become part of this tradition. That is manipulative. That is unethical. And that's another red flag. But green flags as you move in is having that clearly defined set of rules or bylaws, the code of conduct that everybody that comes into it agrees to. And there needs to be an openness to modifying it as time goes, because the world changes. A group that is established in 1992 wasn't going to be in the digital age yet. Here we are, 34 years later. We're in the digital age. It used to be to record a video, you needed a camcorder that was about as large as the cross section of your chest from rib cage to rib cage. Now, I'm recording this video on something that fits in my pocket. I have the internet on this phone. I have cameras. Information is everywhere. Communication is everywhere. Both the seeker and the leadership has to have their own due diligence. I know I've said that or similar things a lot in this video. Masculine leadership, I think the archetypes that we embody within the group need to be something set out within the handbook that every potential initiate would receive within their first 3 appearances. Because you show up once, okay, they're curious. Second appearance, alright, I see you. Third, they are definitely interested. You kind of communicate with them after the first and second time, but after the third time they're there, you try to set up a meeting, talk to them, get to know them a little bit, let them get to know you, learn what they're expecting, let them know what you're expecting, and see where their interests lie. Are they interested in entering your tradition, your spiritual home, as it were? this may be something that is tasked to the priest to do, and it may be something that the priestess does. But I think my ideal situation is something that is done with the high priest and high priestess present, preferably at a neutral location, preferably kind of somewhere out in the open. That way everybody's kind of protected. But there needs to be process, there needs to be rules, there needs to be something of a progression ladder. The material provided needs to be in a form that can be collected by the initiate to go into a folder or binder as they move from initiate to adept. Then the collected knowledge gets thicker. Then from adept to priest, it grows further still. And then as they move deeper into their priesthood, it still continues to grow. Because the knowledge and the journey that we're on does not stop once we get to a certain level. We don't cap out on XP at level 99. We tick over to 100 and on. The masculine archetype is guardian, teacher, warrior, bard, poet, sage, oak king, holly king. There's a certain masculine power that can be exerted through each one of these roles, and there's healthy and unhealthy expressions to all of them. There can be masculinity even in the gentlest of actions. Being that person somebody within your circle comes to when someone in their family dies and they just need a shoulder to cry on. It means something when they come to you with that. It is a supreme act of trust, because that's the most vulnerable they may have ever been in their life. It's when they lose somebody and they choose to be open to share that emotion with you. The least you can do for them is to be an honest support. Maybe that means you wrap your arms around them and just let them cry into your chest. Maybe it means you sit and you grab them something to drink, something to nibble on for food, and you talk. Or rather, they talk and you listen. You hold space. You give them that space to fill however they need to fill it, to express themselves however they need to fill it. There can be solidity and that masculinity within spiritual spaces without being pushy and brash to a toxic degree. There can be a certain cockiness in the masculine archetype, but it always has its reasons. And it always has its consequences if it goes too far. I know in this video I didn't really cover much on the divine masculine archetype, but it turned into more what I would look for in a coven or group, and what I would set out in a created coven or group. But this is a topic that I may revisit later on. But this just kind of came to me on a spur of the moment. So, in conclusion, if you were looking for a group, look for a group that has a guidebook, a handbook that they stick to as closely as they can. Also, look for a group where they have flexibility and they will meet you halfway on some things. Like my example early in the video about the pig roast for a ritual, for an offering. I myself would make sure there were vegan and vegetarian options. I would not force you to not participate or be part of the group just because of that issue. There needs to be a willingness to make accommodation on behalf of the facilitators and leadership, and there needs to be willingness to adapt on the seeker's part. Make sure that there is a certain defined hierarchical structure, and there's some sessions annually, preferably twice, 3 times a year, where you go over the handbook and you discuss it. You go over potential updates, have open forum, have a system where you do not try to separate people from their foundational community, their home, their friends, their families. You do not manipulate somebody in their choices. You don't love bomb them. You give the seeker the choice always. There is due diligence that is needed on both parts, the seeker and the priestess, to ensure the community is the best fit and the best the community could possibly be, just for the general group and the community at large. This is a heavy topic, but it's one that kind of needs to be discussed as often as you can. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.